Hi everyone, my name is Mohammed Sidki. I'm the AIA San Mateo County Chapter President. I want to welcome you all to our first Committee on the Environment event for the year, how to electrify and decarbonize single family homes. Now we are super excited to have this as a joint event with fossil-free buildings, Silicon Valley, and with Redwood Energy. Before we start, I would like to make a few chapter announcements. First, we want to say thank you to our chapter sponsors, Gold chapter sponsors, Romig Engineers and MN Builders, and our Silver chapter sponsors, Da Vinci Marble and BKG Structural Engineers. Upcoming events. So on this coming Saturday, July 17th, we have a California Energy Code seminar. The topic will be low-rise residential projects, accessory dwelling units, ADUs, and electrification. And this is eligible for 5 HSW learning units. Our presenter is Luke Morton, Sustainability Manager at Heather Young Architects. So this is this coming Saturday. On July 28th, we will be hosting Barry Katz, PhD, professor at Stanford and CCA, as he will be discussing the new architecture of information. Okay, I wanted to introduce our newly formed Committee on the Environment, AIA San Mateo County 2021 Committee on the Environment. Hillary Bates, Principal at Hillary Bates Architecture, Kenny Hang, Architect, Senior Associate at DS Architects and Engineers, Katia Kasiova, Senior Project Manager at Stanford Healthcare, and Russ Tilson, Architect at Collaborative Design Studio. Kenny, our chair, you want to say a few words?
Oh, sure. Thank you, Mohammed. Well, I'm Kenny Hunk. I'm really excited to be a part of this committee. I think this is the first year that we have created this subcommittee, and so I feel the energy, and we're all really passionate about sustainable design and about a more equitable future. As an architect, I believe there's a lot we can do, and the mission of this group is really promote design strategies among our members, that empower our members to realize the best social and environmental outcome with through our design work, through our projects. And this year, we really try to focus on thinking about carbon neutral buildings. We're aligning our goal with the National AIA the 2030 commitment. In the next couple of months, Mohammed, maybe next slide, we will have a couple of seminars, including the one today, that we will focus on 3 different aspects of the projects. The first one will be today, single family homes. How we can electrify and create carbon neutral homes. On September 16, we will focus on commercial buildings, whether it's a new projects or renovation, and also commercial kitchens. And later this year in November, we are looking at some electrification strategies, design ideas for life science buildings, which currently are excluded from a lot of the local rich codes. So we are really excited about this and hope everybody can join. And if you are excited to join the committee or have any great suggestion ideas, just send us an email at the AIA San Mateo County Chapter. With that, I hand it off back to Mohammed.
Thank you, Kenny. Thank you so much. Yeah, so as Kenny mentioned, if you guys are excited, want to join, please feel free to reach out to me or to just AIA San Mateo County. Now I'm really excited also to introduce our fossil-free buildings, Silicon Valley Architecture Group. And that's Sandra Salter, Northern California Director for Pool Block Program, Fringiz Serti, Team Lead at Menlo Park Climate Action, Leane Eberhart, owner at Indigo, and Robert Whitehair, Vice Chair at Sustainable San Mateo County. We actually had a lot of fun working with, making this joint event with Fossil-Free Building Silicon Valley. Very exciting group, very passionate about sustainability and the environment. And I cannot wait to hear Leane speak. Okay, so today's session format, we will have 50 minutes of presentation, and that's like 2 presentations, Shan and Leane. And then we'll follow with 20 minutes Q&A discussion. Now, you don't have to wait all the way to the end for the discussion. You feel free to add your questions in the chat box during the presentation, and we can answer them as they came. Please mute yourself to reduce background noise, and know that the session is being recorded. And we will be posting this to our YouTube channel. Okay, our guest speaker, Leane Eberhart. So Leane joined Fossil-Free Building Silicon Valley earlier this year. Her background in architecture has covered many different project types, but her wider passion is in sustainability. Her interest started in college with her thesis focused on an adaptive reuse of an old abandoned high school in Albuquerque and an Australian Aboriginal museum with high energy efficient buildings. The last few years, she has felt the growing environmental crisis, and it has pushed her to engage more fully in pursuing sustainability. With that, I will hand it to Leane.
All right. Hi, welcome everyone. So glad to be here. I'm here today with, as Mohammed said, Fossil-Free Building Silicon Valley, and they've been working since 2019 to pass REACH codes up and down the peninsula. But as we've been growing in success with that, we've started to move out into sharing our information to switching to all electric to industry associations, homeowners, and other community groups. Next. All right, so why have I got a bowl of kale on the slide? Well, I, like you, probably don't have a lot of time, and when I do stop for a moment and I'm massaging my kale, looking out the window, my thoughts turn to the climate crisis and how we got ourselves into this pickle. So not everyone may feel constrained to speak up and guide their clients towards what they believe is a compelling climate discussion, but for a lot of us, this type of discussion may feel kind of uncomfortable, especially when it's the client's home and their finances paying for our services. Next. So, however, while I do not have any children, some of you may, and as you look around you tonight in Zoom or at home at your children and your younger colleagues, this problem is not going to go away. They're going to inherit it. So while you cannot close your window to the rising heat waves or the wildfires without wondering what's coming next. And if you saw the recent Bloomberg news that said that past June was the hottest on record in Northern America, kind of scary. So we're here today to try and offer you a few ideas, a few discussion points for your single family home clients that will hopefully ring true for you and that you can use to use your voice to move us forward as a profession and as a state. Next. Poll question, yay! How many of your single family residential projects have some sustainable or zero energy components? Mohammed?
Yeah, I just launched the poll, so everyone should see that. You can select one and then we will give 30 seconds for the answers.
All right.
So
they're coming in.
Less than half, more than half, all of them. We have 36%,
neck and neck,
40%. Ten more seconds. It's just how many of your single family residential projects have some sustainable or zero energy components, and you can choose from none to all of them. I have 50% voted. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I will share results. So it looked like 47% said less than half. 33% says more than half. So that's like the majority.
All right, so next. So we have some perhaps room for improvement, but doing quite well. And we're here, let's see, we got the polling thing up here. There we go. Let's see. So why does going all electric make sense? So globally, as you may know, we're trying to meet the Paris Agreement of sticking to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. And buildings need to play their part. Getting to 1.5 is a very steep cliff, and scientific models generated have trouble keeping the warming below 1.5. So what is needed is huge cuts in global emissions of greenhouse gases, and also the development of new sequestration technologies to pull CO2 out of the air and store it safely. Here in California, as you can see, we have set a goal of 100% clean energy by 2045. And we're hoping to be carbon neutral and energy independent by then. And that, of course, means homes, which are responsible for about a quarter of all statewide greenhouse gas emissions. So, see, on this slide, you can see that it's not only the energy that plays a part with the building operations, but also the upstream emissions of construction materials and the transportation to the site. So that added together is looking at about approximately, depend on what you look at, 40% of buildings' total greenhouse gas emissions. And I've included a link on this slide for perhaps a future AIA talk, which talks about building new homes and how they could lock materials into it, such as straw insulation and wood framing, to sequester carbon and draw down the greenhouse gases, allowing the home itself to become a carbon sink. Kind of an interesting idea, right? Next. So, how can we as architects help make the switch to all electric? Here's a few points. We, of course, love you to help join fossil-free buildings and help us work on REACH codes. We have a few out there still remaining. We're looking at you, Woodside and Hillsborough. And if you have a client that's considering a new build or a retrofit to their home, might consider talking to them about the electric options that are available and the very real possibility of gas in the future becoming a stranded asset, meaning higher bills for a lesser used utility. Also having a discussion with your client about resiliency in the home and creating a gas phase out plan, starting with the appliance that typically fails the fastest, the water heater, which, as you know, when it goes out, you want one right away. So better to plan ahead. And also, as far as resiliency, how battery backup and/or EV cars can help a client during a power outage. And talking briefly about the health and safety benefits of going all electric. And in the next section, Sean's going to help us wade into the specific all electric systems and appliance options. Next slide. So fossil-free building Silicon Valley has, of course, been working to remove fossil fuels and has currently helped pass 24 REACH codes in San Mateo and Santa Clara County, which you can see some of them here. Their link is at the bottom of the page, and they have some very helpful guides that are provided by Redwood Energy for different construction types for all electric. Next. And here's also a link to the Building Decarb Coalition's website, where you can quickly, it's updated regularly, and you can quickly check on your project's location and see what systems and building types are covered with the REACH codes. Next. All right, take it away, Mohammed.
Yep, you should see the poll right now.
And I would love for everyone to respond on this one if you can, just because I'm terribly interested. And half my talk is a story, kind of, and then the other half is very nuts and bolts, granular technology. And so I just want to know what I can do to specifically help y'all. And Yeah, Leanne is also going to be giving a great presentation. You'll see. She's got answers for you.
So we have 50% voted. We need the other 50%.
It's like watching a horse race.
And I will give 10 more seconds. 5 and polling. Share results. So this is the results.
Great. So Sean's gonna have his work cut out for him there. Just kidding.
So it looks like it's the gas stove or fireplaces. Yeah. Okay. Let me stop sharing this.
Okay, so next. All right, so resiliency and the home. So it's abundantly clear that through recent events, clearly shown that climate change with its extreme temperatures and our aging infrastructure and higher energy needs is a perfect storm. But homeowners don't need to despair. They can create their own resiliency with their home. And no, it's not an all-electric mobile home, although this is pretty cool. Next. So there's some myths out there about electric appliances, and a lot of people are hesitant about them. But while electric will go down during a power failure, a lot of gas appliances will, because they're the newer ones still have electric ignition switches, which will of course require electricity. And during a let's hope it doesn't ever happen, but a natural disaster, gas is always slower to be restored. So not a great bet. So if 100% reliability is a goal for your client's home or project, electrification combined with a battery backup and or solar system can provide them peace of mind. Next. So you may wonder, on the peninsula, what is the operational emissions rate for our residences here? Well, I'm glad you asked. After doing some research, I found that there are 5 CCAs up and down the peninsula, or community choice aggregators, and they're 100% carbon free. Yay! So unless your residential projects, the client has opted out, which is, I think, somewhat rare, you're getting carbon-free energy into the home. So that's one great step forward. There's also 2 options, just to let you know. Usually there's a 50 and 100% renewable options for your client for renewable energy. And if you live in Portola Valley, extra points. They've signed up their whole town to go 100% renewable. Yay! So next. So here in San Mateo County, Peninsula Clean Energy has a great program for San Mateo County homeowners. They can get a rebate of $1,250 to install solar and a battery backup system. They have a program called Power on Peninsula, and it has a lot of benefits, such as it helps out vulnerable segments of the community. They have a program to help medical needs backup, while also creating a community storage network. All these people getting solar, it provides a lot of resiliency for San Mateo County and their grid. Next. All right, so looking at going all electric, while it's true, sometimes the size of the home's electrical panel may be affected by all these electrical items. However, before looking at upgrading the client's panel, first check for ways to reduce the home's electrical needs, which this is probably pretty simple point for architects. They probably realize that reducing the energy demand in the home through passive solar techniques, passive house, siting of the home, envelope tightness. I just saw an article today in Fast Company that talked about architects from Portland and Northwest area with their recent heat waves. They're all talking about passive home as being the new go-to. So, you know, it's on top of everybody's mind right now. So anyway, the next section, I think Sean will discuss the specific ways to make this happen through appliance splitters, 2-in-1 appliances, bidirectional chargers, or V2H, which is shown here. Next.
So another poll, let me.
So do your clients think all electric or sustainable homes will cost more?
This is an easy one. Yes. No.
Well, we'll give up right there.
We'll give 10 seconds just because it's. And we have 50%. 5 more seconds. And polling. So 81% think it's yes. They think would cost
Right.
more. Client would think it would cost more.
Yeah. So we kind of pretty much expected that. So the next slide, you'll see there's been in California, all electric homes, new electric homes can cost $10,000 less to build because they will only require one energy system, electricity, to be installed. It's been a study done by the Rocky Mountain Institute. Here you see a graphic, I believe it's from them, showing all the different items, looking at the costs. And also they've done a study showing that if you're retrofitting a home and you're getting rid of your clients, or you're replacing your clients' furnace and their air conditioning, replacing with a heat pump space heating system is less as well. So it's a challenge for sure, but looking at it as a home-wide transition master plan, you can look at gradually changing over your clients' appliances to help them decarbonize gradually. So next. All right, so again, while the initial cost of switching to electric can be higher, with rebates, financing over time, and adding solar power, the costs can be less than using gas. Electrifying both the HVAC and water heating can lead to $100 to $400 savings per year. And rebates on appliances, envelope upgrades, and electric panels for residents can be found by zip code at the switches on. This is a great website. I encourage you to go look at it. Just put your zip code in and it pops up with multiple different rebates from PG&E, Bay Ren, and either, I think, Peninsula Clean Energy, and there may be some in there from some of the other CCAs, but a lot of great benefits there for your homeowners. Next.
And we are going to share the slide, so don't worry about like copying the link. We will share the slide with all the links.
Yes. All right, and this image is probably very familiar to people here on the peninsula. It's a well-remembered tragedy, the San Bruno pipeline explosion of 2010, which was of course caused by gas lines and our aging gas lines that cause thousands of home fires every year. And I was surprised to learn that our gas lines underneath our streets running to our homes are as much as like 50 to 100 years old. So there you go. Next. All right, this is a great image. It shows all the different areas of indoor air pollution, and living in a home that's all electric is more comfortable, healthier, and safer for your client. There's a lot of harmful pollution coming from your appliances. 2020 UCLA study found that children that grow up in a home with gas are 42% more likely to develop asthma than those who don't. So, next. So induction cooktops are a great alternative to gas stoves. This is a great example. Using a gas stove can easily cause indoor air pollution that, if it was measured, the levels, if they were measured outside, would violate the Clean Air Act. So something to think about when you're cooking. Induction stoves are faster, use less energy, and generate less heat in your kitchen. And of course, you may or may not know, if you go to the French Laundry often, Thomas Keller uses them in his kitchen. All right, next.
So we have the last poll question, and let me share it.
Which electric appliance do your clients see as least desirable? This will be interesting.
So least desirable.
We kind of talked about this when we were doing our slides, and a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, like the water heater and the furnace, we weren't sure that the clients were really going to care too much about, but we've heard a lot from clients and talking amongst ourselves about these other two. So
okay, 5 seconds, and we will end polling now.
All right, next.
So Fireplace, 44% says Fireplace, and then 39% says induction cooktop or range.
All right.
So
As you may know, as architects, it may be easier to get homeowners to switch out appliances that they don't touch every day. For example, electric water heaters, or maybe an easier sell than an induction range if the client is very attached to their gas stove. But with 2/3 of California building emissions coming from gas combustion appliances, making or helping to make the client do at least one change is worth it. Next. So we're glad we chose this. Hillary Bates helped me with this. Kudos to her. Fireplaces. Here you see 3 different examples of all-electric fireplaces. There's a lot of new ones coming out in the market that are a lot more attractive than maybe some of the ones that you saw in the past. So we just wanted to show you these. One is a hologram, one's electric logs in a retro, the Malm fireplace, and the other one is a linear water vapor. So next. All right, so this is again being provided to you at the end of the talk, but some resources for you. There's Actera has a loaner program for induction cooktops. So I encourage you to try them out for yourself. It'd be a great experience. So, and there's also some information on availability of rebates. We put rebates in here, and also direction for experienced installers and contractors. And there's also a great, at the bottom there, there's free technical assistance now being offered through a joint PCE and Silicon Valley Clean Energy campaign that architects is specifically for architects. Next. And last but not least, the AIA website has great resources for policy, healthy building materials, and an upcoming how to make the business case with clients on sustainable design. So, as stated on the AIA website, as architects, we have a social and ethical responsibility to be stewards of the built environment. And now, on to Sean Armstrong of Redwood Energy, who will discuss some great actual appliances and methods. Go, Sean!
Thank you so much, Leanne. Thank you. This was awesome. Great. So just a little bit about Sean. Sean Armstrong with Redwood Energy. Sean has worked for 25 years in building electrification, leading the retrofit and new construction of almost 10,000 of all electric apartments and homes. and has designed 1 in 4 zero net energy residences built in North America, including the first zero net energy apartments in 2011. In 2018, Sean began authoring with his staff the first 5 practical guides to building electrification, published in the world. Among other noteworthy awards, Redwood Energy won the Grand Prize World Habitat Award from the United Nations in 2017 for a farm worker family development that used an all-electric design and 100% solar power to produce enough net financial benefit to build 2 more residences. So I'll give it to Sean now.
Hey, hello everybody. So this booklet is online on our website, and along with the other ones were just mentioned, and this will be, a lot of the slides are images taken from the booklets and such. So it's just longer, it's like 90 pages. So next, please. Briefly, hey, I studied at the Campus Center for Appropriate Technology. I mentioned earlier that's the oldest existing demonstration home in the country, moving away from fossil fuels the whole time. I was a science teacher for a few years. Then I became an affordable housing project manager with the Pacific West Communities, helped create a new affordable housing division with Danco Communities, and it was awesome. Learned everything about how to make zero net energy housing happen at the apartment scale, development scale. And so since 2011, I've been a consultant. You can see my house on the lower left-hand corner, which we finished the electrification in 2017 after there was an explosive gas leak in the front yard and before my mother-in-law passed away in the Santa Rosa fires, the first of our climate change induced fires. So very much had like a distressing fall of 2017 as we transitioned. So, and then right in the bottom there, that's a cool project. It's 500 units, passive house on the Washington, D.C. Beltway that's starting construction next year. And it'll be 100% solar powered, 9-story tall solar array on the parking garage facing the Beltway. Next, please. Okay, story time. Take a drink here. Okay, 120 years ago, we were at a transition point. You know, we had gone from having about 4 million horses to almost 27 million horses in the country. They were everywhere, and they're all over the streets. They're dying. They were a source of pestilence and disease. They're really expensive. It took about 2 acres of farmland to keep, and it was still mostly for the wealthy. Everyone walked. Like, you know, only like 1 in 7, 1 in 8 people had a horse. So there became a movement to get rid of horses as the sort of industrial revolution came about, and the question would it be a car that ran on gas or electricity, and the first best ones were electric. They went the fastest and they went the furthest, but they needed work on battery technology. Next slide. By about 1935, only 1 in 10 rural people had electricity. 9 in 10 didn't. That was the reverse in the cities. So the government took on this, recognizing how important electricity was for everyone's life, but in rural areas, just having lighting at night and being able to keep animals warm and a variety of other great things to do. Like it's kind of an industrial activity that we do here on farms. So next slide. Utilities banded together in the 50s and 60s and ever on, basically, to support electrification. So they hired Ronald Reagan, about 180 of them, and this is the beginning, essentially, of his political career. As he went around the country opening up nuclear power plants and speaking sort of about like this American vision of clean energy and electricity so free you only had to pay a monthly fee for it, which is what we can do now with solar arrays. Next slide. So here you can see some of the ads. You know, in the 50s and 60s, they were advertising what it was called a heat pump, which meant it could do air conditioning and heating at the same time. And I have a bunch of these little trinkets around here. From at the very bottom in the green, you can see there's a Total Electric Award. These are these big bronze medallions that put on your house. Pretty cool. They're heavy. I just gave one to my 7-year-old today. She's like, "Can I have it, please? It's so shiny." I'm like, "Yeah, I got a few more." You know, they're like 35 bucks a piece on eBay. Next slide. So next big step forward is in 2007, our last bipartisan energy law was the 2007 Energy Independence and Security Act, and that changed things nationally. The USDA, they started giving competitive scoring for their rural development loans, which is what I was working on at the time, for zero net energy. And so we started doing apartment complexes that were for farm workers and low-income families and seniors in order to win the loans. And that really is what started any scale of zero net energy, truly all electric, 100% solar power, at least over the course of a year. Not battery. They started asking for batteries like in 2014 and 15 to further the independence. Next slide. And just to illustrate this, with other energy resources and batteries, a system with 55% PV could plausibly support all of the United States energy needs. So this is, if we have about 45% other energy resources and we're working with storage, that we could essentially meet about 55% of our needs with solar power. That's what we could do, and that's the least expensive source of energy we have in the country. Right now, more than 60% of all new power plants since 2019, 60 to 70% every year, globally are wind and solar. The new power plants are all cheap, and those are wind and solar. And it's the minority now, like in the less than a third essentially, that's gas, and then there's a few other that are filling in the gaps, some coal that's still being developed in Japan and China. So next slide. So some of our early solar stars. I just had a lot of fun going and looking at the stars' roofs and doing house tours and such. So these are all people who put solar on back when it was kind of expensive, helping pave the way, making it innovative, just like NASA funded it in the 60s. And then the marijuana growers in Mendocino and Humboldt County like paid for all the solar in the United States, basically from the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. And then in the 2000s, it was California customers like these folks. Next slide. And oh, by the way, can you go back? Can you do one of those polls? Okay, so everyone find your favorite star. Like, is it the fact that all three of these hulks got solar arrays on their roof? And can you set up one of those polls on the side? Where you ask people what their favorite star is?
It has to be preset, sorry.
All right, well,
but
stick it in the chat.
You can just put that like in the chat box below. Just
Exactly, I'd appreciate that. Anyone who has an opinion. Who's your favorite solar star? Okay, next slide. The Hulk, yes.
The new Hulk.
Yeah, I agree. The newest Hulk is the Adele.
Adele.
Like out on the side of London, just outside London, solar all over her house. Prince, he funded lots of solar in Oakland. He never put it on his Minnesota house, but he funded lots of it quietly in Oakland.
I would add another vote for Adele.
Oh yeah, I would have voted. Absolutely. Next slide. Okay, so this is a great example of the power of inexpensive solar.
Dinner time.
I'm going to give a presentation for a while, so if you bring it out to me, I appreciate it.
Oh.
Thanks. So tribal housing, this is the first tribal housing ever built in California with state funds. And I worked on this in 2015, and the only way this project got enough money in it is if we solarized all of the rooftops so that we could get rid of the utility bills, and otherwise the project was not fundable. And that was that dramatic of a financial resource. It essentially builds an extra unit or two in every development that we're in, or in this case, closes the gap that represented one or two of these tiny homes for low-income seniors. This is the Trinity River Elder Village that the Yurok Indian Authority, YIHA it's called, Yurok Indian Housing Authority. So look at this just for a second. In orange, you see AFUE, which is the efficiency of a furnace, and the EF, which is the efficiency of a water heater. So we set them both at 93%. That's efficient, cost-effective, efficient gas. Electricity bill for this place is 28 bucks. Propane's 51. Total bill is 79. And then we just did it all electric. The total bill is $59. And then we did it with solar power on an all-electric project, and we were able to get the utility bills down to $5. And that's money that the YIHA didn't have to pay. And that was the funding gap. That's how we got the first tribal housing built. And that's how important solar power is to the finances of anyone's home. Is why it's now code required. It's because it's so cost effective in reducing the cost of ownership, be it YIHA or an individual person. Next slide. So in most of the country, all electric is significantly cheaper. So here on the left-hand side, you can see that a heat pump water heater is literally off the charts, $225 being the lowest gas bill. That's the chart. So $161 is what you pay with this heat pump water heater on average in the US. On the right-hand side, on average, the most efficient gas water heater that you can find is $225 a year for the same amount of water volume and, you know, occupancy and et cetera, just apples to apples. So that's just real. It's not true in every state. About one in three states or so, it's a little bit better to use gas, and a few states it's significantly better to use gas unless you have solar, which cheapens the cost of electricity and all works out. And like California, where it's kind of on the edge, you add cheap solar and it goes right over the edge and it makes it much easier to build all electric. Next slide. So that's how we got to where we are. The 2020 code, right, is about a 60% offset, 60 to 70%, depending upon the project, but that's the code. And that's supposed to cover all the loads that aren't water heater and the furnace. And that's how they sized it. Whoops. That's everything that isn't those two regulated loads, because they couldn't in that year ban gas. The 2020 code, Energy Commission doesn't really have authority to ban gas, so they just, in the next code you'll see, it heavily discourages gas and heavily incentivizes electricity. Next slide. Okay, so this is the big insight for all of you who are doing new construction, is that all electric is a no-brainer. The cost of bringing gas to a building site is expensive. In rural areas particularly, new construction very expensive. In our developments, all electric is less expensive to build and just as efficient or more efficient in operations, and you can't generate gas on site, but you can generate electricity with solar electric panels to lower bills. That is the beating heart of Danco communities, and now so many more businesses are incorporating it in affordable housing. It just is such a dramatic difference in your competitiveness going for funding that you only get 1 in 4 applications get money. Your solar is what gets you over the finish line because it's so cost effective. Next slide. Yeah, we definitely, says Leane, we need more REACH codes. And this is, by the way, I mean, Oakland passed theirs, and that's where our vice president is from. We are definitely, I'll show this in a moment. Anyway, here, this is the Propane Education Research Council. We're in distress in 2016, and they asked the International ICF, whatever they stand for, it's a big research organization, why were they losing market share nationwide? And what they came up with in their 2016 Outlook report that is publicly available is this amazing graphic of where all electric construction is gaining market share everywhere, including in California. And I've done this research and realized like all electric has been gaining market share since electricity was invented. And it only took a break from 73 to 93. And at every other point, like, you know, the majority of water heaters built since 1950 have been all electric nationwide. Think about that. And furnaces since 1970, the majority have been electric furnaces nationwide. And what we have to acknowledge is that the South has been building and building and building much more than much of our country. And that's where 4 in 10 residences, like in 2014, were all electric. In 2017, 78% of homes in new construction in 2017, 78% had heat pumps in the South. It is very cost effective to build all electric. The next slide. Here's the costs. The furnace is $1,000 to $3,000 more than putting in a heat pump. Water heater is cost neutral. It's $100 more for a dryer. It's $2,000 to $1,000 more per gas fixture. It's more than $100 for the stoves, just exact models, like for like, same manufacturer, same model. We did a whole big study of them. It is always $100 more to have the gas version of any stove that's at, you know, just like Home Depot, any of them. It's $100 more. And then the developer has to pay for the line extension. Sometimes there's discounts on it, but it usually costs something. The actual cost is $16,567. One way or another, that house pays for it. And then $141 to $3,715. That's just from PG&E. All these are PG&E data except for the stoves. We did that work. And then you can see the costs, they're all passed on your gas bill. 80% of your gas bill is the infrastructure cost. And as we shut down the gas industry, stopping the extension of new gas lines is what sends them into what's called a death spiral, because 80% of their revenue every year is building new gas lines. So just stopping it is what actually creates the crisis. And the crisis is we need to stop burning all the fossil fuels years ago. I did mention that my mother-in-law died of a fossil fuel induced, essentially, climate change induced fire. It's pretty real. Next slide. Right, so heat pumps help everywhere. the whole nation. This is Sierra Club study, and I can show you the math on how that works. So basically, the heat pump collects energy from the air that the sun created. So it's just a solar energy collectors from the warmth of the air. And so it uses 1 unit of electricity and it collects 3 to 6 or 2.5 to 6. And so you get far more energy out of the system, essentially. Just a little bit of electricity leverages a lot of collection of heat energy. It's a souped up solar thermal collector from the roof, a heat pump essentially, because it goes through a vapor compression cycle. The point of boiling, the fact that it boils is where it stores much more energy than the propylene glycol in a solar thermal collector. So it's a solar thermal collector just souped up with a little bit of physics. Next slide. Sorry for showing this twice, 46 jurisdictions, but I also want to add like New York City, Boston suburbs, Austin, Honolulu, Seattle passed a great code, Cross Plains, Wisconsin, next to where I'm from, and like my family had a jewelry store in Madison. We live a little south of that on a farm. So anyway, all over the country. Next slide. And it was really Berkeley who kicked it off. And Berkeley here is also doing a fantastic job of having one of the most stringent codes for getting rid of concrete use in buildings. So you have to reduce the concrete use by 30%. I think Marin County has that as well. And it's really important because that's the CO2 now. Making it all electric is a choice for all the future, but the carbon impact of the building now is equal to about the first 20 years of energy consumption operationally. And we don't have 20 years to right this ship. So we really need to now stop using quite as much concrete and transition towards carbon sequestration, which we have in the Bay Area. We can essentially get like carbon offset concrete. We can do that. We pay a little more money, but substituting 30% is not more expensive. Next slide. So electrification jumped the ship over to the Green New Deal. It's specifically listed. And then that's been renamed Clean Energy under the Biden administration. Oh, my dinner is arriving. Come on in. Oh, sorry about this real quick. All right, I'm not gonna eat in front of you, I promise. I'll just sort of have it around, they'll smell. At a late lunch. Okay, next slide. Okay, a lot of the issues, I just want to make it really clear, like a gas stove is just as bad as a secondhand cigarette smoking going on in your house. That's how bad it is. It has the same 1/3 increase in asthma in children. Secondhand smoke and a gas stove in your house, both these cause a 30 to 40% increase in asthma in kids. It's just this most straightforward, simple thing to say. Gas stoves are like huffing off the back of a car exhaust pipe. That it's just a gas that's burning in your house. And hoods barely work. And even if you have them on, they barely work. They have very low capture efficiency. And gas stoves are also the #1 source of formaldehyde in your life. That's the #1 source in your life is your gas stove. It creates a lot of formaldehyde that doesn't get vented. So it causes leukemia in kids and in pets. It's a heavier than air gas that puddles around your feet. It's bad for you. Next slide. So fancy restaurants worldwide have gone all electric. I've gone to so many back of the kitchen YouTube clips watching videos. So I've tracked down Michelin restaurants. I've gone through like 20 of them, which means like almost 100 videos. So this is a great one, Leane in Chicago. They do chemistry, and the whole point of all electric cooking is it's hyper controllable. It's just perfect for anything you need to do. So they make balloons with helium that are made out of marshmallow, and you pop the balloon and that's part of your dessert. Next slide. Over here in Per Se in New York, also owned by the French laundry chef. You had it, Thomas Keller, right? Per Se, here's some fancy food there, all electric. Next slide. This one's Geranium, another 3 Michelin stars in Copenhagen. You see those levitating dessert chocolatey things, all this food. So fanciest of fancies. Next one. Okay, now getting you updated. This just happened on Friday. As part of the drought announcement, we just moved 10 years up in our goal for 100% carbon neutral economy in California to 2035. And it was even hard to get this news, but it's a big deal to tell all the agencies, no, you don't have a whole extra generation to figure this out. Just get off your hands. We're doing this now. And we really need to go faster than this. We'll see what happens after another cataclysmic fire season that we're going through. you know, and how many years of drought before we just stop monkeying around. Next slide. Oh, whoopsie, double slides. Next slide. Okay, so this is a great example of Bay Area. This is actually a fourplex, but it's a cute one. So I want to talk about batteries because it's really fun to be able to see everything all in once. So this has a solar array, it's a canopy. Everyone hangs out underneath it. You can see in the upper right-hand corner, solar array canopy, how you maximize the roof. And it's fun to hang out underneath it. It's bifacial, so the solar light comes through it. And then down below, they've got Tesla Powerwalls. Can you see that behind the Tesla that's parked there? Okay. So, and this fellow, John Sarter, who developed this, he's also the distributor for a kind of new charger that charges the house with the car. So the Ford Lightning next year comes out capable of charging your house with the truck. Just like all of VW's family of cars will be doing that next year. 2022 models of electric vehicles, 100% vehicle to building, vehicle to grid charging ability. Now, to get the economics, if you have a Powerwall there, it stores 13 kilowatt hours and it costs 10 grand, give or take a few $1,000s depending upon your installer, 9 to 13 kind of, but it's 13 kilowatt hours. Okay, then you have a Tesla over there, like a long distance, but not a fancy one, a $45,000 car. And it has 60 kilowatt hours, 63, something like that. So just do that math. You think, okay, so for $45,000, I can buy sort of 4 of those, so that's 4 times. So I've got 52 kilowatt hours, I've got close to 60, and all I have is a battery on the wall. Or for $45,000, I can have a battery I can plug in my house anytime the power's out, and I can drive it in style. You know, it's like it's the same battery, and one of them's got wheels, and a sound system, and AC, and like a date. So then you can get the cheapest way you can buy a battery right now is an electric vehicle. The discount price is way lower. And so you can get like a 2011 Nissan Leaf that's way cheaper per kilowatt hour. It still has more than 13 kilowatt hours. It's like it's equal to 2 Powerwalls, and it's $4,000. $6,000. Just plug it into your house. Next slide. Here's the example, the DC Bell. That's the one that John Sarter is representing. Wallbox is coming out with one. They're out of Spain. And Fermata and Nuve, they've all said they were going to do it last year, but the pandemic, you know, so everyone's got electronics shortfalls and such because of the supply chains and yada yada. Next slide. Oh, and that's been going on since 1994. It's just finally getting to the United States. This is common throughout Eurasia, really common in Japan. So here's the stoves slide. In the upper right left-hand corner, this is what I do. I cook on a drink pod for 140 bucks. And then I have another fancy one like the IKEA, but I got like a $200 one. So I have 2 cooking stations, which makes it easy for my wife and myself, or my son and myself to cook at the same time. It's a real pleasure. And it's cheap. Down below here, these instant pots, electric woks. This is for your fast. If I convinced you to stop poisoning yourself and your kids and your grandkids and your pets with the gas stove, this is your solution. Just go get some of these cheapo things while you decide if you want to get a $500 smooth top electric radiant, just fine. People have been using those in nice homes ever since the 50s. Smooth top, not the coil, that's crap. Then if the next one in the middle, you can see those are the inductions, starting at $1 grand for Frigidaire, going up to say $2,400 for GE. I'm a big fan of the Frigidaire, by the way. I like the double oven version. And down below is for the antique retro look. These are fancy. You know, there's one of these, you see it's $22,000, and AGA has been making these since, like, this guy, he went nearly blind with a chemistry explosion and fuels in like the 1910s, and he built this thing to be safe for his wife because he was panicked about her using gas ever after that. So he started this business to make electric ranges in like the 1920s that were really high end, and the business is still there. It's still making stupid expensive ranges and 4 ovens and the rest of it. Next slide. Okay, these are ones you stick into the countertop. You know, the ones that are for like the separate ovens over there. You can see like the Samsung has the little blue lights that go up and down and look like blue flames on that kind of lick the side of the pot the way the light looks. So it's for a transition. This one here for people who need to sort of see the heat. don't want to trust the numbers or the such on the knobs. And down below, these just examples more of the inexpensive ones, you know, Duxtop and Eurodib and these, I've just tested them all really to see. They last only a few years if you cook a lot. Next slide. The cheap ones. I'm saying expensive ones, they last like they should. Okay, so for luxury swimming, I love swimming at this friend's swimming pool. It's got pineapples and bananas and a rope swing and sugar cane and flowers all over the place and tomatoes and eggplants and cucumbers, and it's on the dunes where it's cold outside. So you like rush through the sand in there and you jump into a hot swimming pool in the middle of January. I mean, come on. So this guy, he used to do solar thermal, but it doesn't work that well in the winter. And so they didn't have gas backup. So then he got rid of all of this $30,000 worth of solar thermal, and he put in the Hayward Heat Pro for $5,000 total. And now he's able to heat the pool winter and summer with renewable energy. And he's got his little solar array, the PV electric one, to power. It's not on this Google image, but there's solar on the roof on this old mansion, the Christensen mansion. So these are examples of them. You know, these also work for hot tubs. They get up to 104, 110, you know. Next slide. Outdoor entertaining, you know, a heated table, can't get that with gas. A couple of these like stand-up types. And then down below, lots of barbecues, like the Maverick on the side, that's for, you know, you can't have open flames on boats. So electric barbecues are commonly put into boats. But they go into, like when I was in Hawaii 2 years ago, the fancy grill outside was this electric grill, and it was all like undercover and, you know, looked nice. So anyway, every single thing that you want with fuel, you can do it with electricity. Next slide. You can get smokers, by the way, tons of all electric construction down in the south because it's hard to get gas through swamps. It'll cause explosions when the gas leaks and makes a big puddle of methane underneath the water, and then it goes boom. So all southern food, you can find all electric restaurants everywhere. So here, these are examples. I really think Leane did a better job, but I like the ones that make mist. And they light it with LEDs, and you think you're sticking your hands in the flames. Like, it scares you because it does look like you're sticking your hands in flames, but it's not. It's just mist with a little ultrasound underneath it. So there's tons out there. There's fancy ones. You can make it like Rainbow Pride Parade with LEDs, and they all like every color you want, or you can make it look like normal flame. But I like the idea of having like a bar on like Pride Day, you know, like a wrap around the flames and just having them, or like, you know, Harry Potter theme parks, so you can make everything green for Slytherin house that night. Next slide. Okay, so this is just the standard block that you get ever since the 1950s. And they started making them into heat pumps in the late 50s, things that look like this, and 60s and 70s, 80s. And this is American style. They all go super cold. You find these up in the Arctic, etc. Next slide. But these ones are a little bit better. This is the Eurasian type. This is the stuff that's built in Italy and China and Japan. Japan being one of the centers of design in the whole world, really. So Haier, which is the leading brand out of China, -31 Fahrenheit, you can do with that type of heat pump. Other ones were like -5, -10s before they went into electric resistance. So this type of heat pump, they've geared them so that they never run out. And then Mr. Cool, that bigger one, that's an American made, goes to -22 and below, by the way. It's just its last rated temperature. And so that's American made, but it has the Eurasian body type, so to speak. LG over there, great brand. So you can power any type of house with this. This is a air to air, what these look like, but they also do air to water for radiant floors. Next slide. This is an example. These folks, they're down in your neighborhood in the Silicon Valley area. Joanne and Brian, they've got their Tesla and their power walls, and lower left-hand corner, you can see their radiant floor being installed. And they've got a ground source heat pump for this sucker, which is an expensive way to go. Next slide. So up above, you can see those are ground source heat pumps, the GeoCool, the Nordic, the water furnace. And that means you have to dig pipes into the ground down below, and sometimes very deep. But down below, in the Arctic, the Space Pack, the Air Mech, the Chiltrex, these are all products that use air to water. So they use the heat in the air and they concentrate it in the water, and then you can use the water for domestic hot water and radiant floors or radiators, etc. And you know, higher temperatures like true old-fashioned cast iron radiators, you have to get specialized products as you get above about 140 Fahrenheit, and those want 160 to 180. So if you want to chat about that, we can contact me later and I'll show you the specialized products and strategies and such. But basically, you can do anything. Anything that you can do with gas, you can do better with electricity. And cheaper, and safer, cleaner. Next slide. Here's the residential water heaters. Little tiny ones, mostly. The Steve Leltron, this guy, his grandpa and his business, Steve Leltron, that's a leading water heater manufacturer in Germany. And he left Germany as a grandson to go to college in Vermont and never left. So now these are made in Vermont. And then Rheem, A.O. Smith, Bradford White, these are all kind of American style, small for showering with 40 to 80 gallons of hot water storage. The Eco 2 over on the left-hand side, those are out of Japan. And you see it has a separate compressor down there. That's 4 times as much heat production. And that's for the, I take a shower and then I have a sitting tub household. You know, the 100 to 150 gallon sitting tub that the family takes turns in over the evening. The Sanden is made for that. That's Japanese style bathing. So just so you know, we use them sometimes in apartments, or they go into fancy people's homes, etc., or people with those big eggshell bathtubs that are just massive. That's this kind of water heaters for that. Next slide. This is what those American types, the integrated tank types, this is what they cost according to 650 of them installed in Sacramento. So you see they cost to purchase $1,100 to $1,300, but all in, it's $3,500 to $4,500, with the average, you know, wiggling up and down in between $3,500 and $4,500, going up and then going down, and it's in that range is the average. But you can see the standard deviations in light pink. How some of them, like about 7% in light pink, and then you have like about 40% in the darker pink, and another 40% in this darker pink, and another 7-ish% up there. It's about, so that's how the standard deviations work. Most of them are hovering around 3,000 to 5,000, and the average is in the $3,500 range. Next slide. You can install them anywhere. You can stick them in your house without venting them and just deal with the fact that you're going to be chilling an area a little bit. People love them in garages because they keep the garage a little bit cooler. But we put them in apartments without venting them to the outside, or we vent them to the outside. You can duct them. You can, so a lot of different options for where to stick them. In a house, outside of a house. Next slide. Okay. The Watt diet. Here, like a big, you might have heard of Rewiring America, an organization that's pushing for everyone to get a 200 amp panel. PG&E only really has installed 100 amp panels up until the last 10 years. So almost everyone has a 100 amp panel. And the question is, can we just keep on doing that? Or can we just keep that in a person's house? So here you can see how a house size goes from 1,000 to 1,600 to 2,000 square feet to 2,500. You can see the total allowed watts for the house. That's its sort of its diet. So next slide. So these are energy efficient appliances, but they take a lot of power. So this is your energy efficient electric resistance dryer, but it takes 7,200 watts when it's going full tilt. Then this water heater, that's a 4,500 watt. It's efficient, but it uses a lot of power in the moment when it's using a lot. And same here with this split heat pump, like 4,300 to 7,000 watts. Next slide. So here's power and energy efficient equivalents. So this dryer is not 7,200, it's 1,200. The water heater is not 4,500, it's 1,000 watts. This through-all heat pump, 1,400 watts, not 4,300 to 7,000. Or this mini split version, same idea, 1090 watts. This is how you do it. It's less expensive, usually also power and energy efficient appliances. Next slide. So here's an example. I'm running my little tiny house here. These architects, I know these things are not the most fun, the stuff over there. So this is, I tried to make as cute of a tiny house as I could because I was doing it illegally. You know, it's on wheels, it's in my backyard, not supposed to do this. So it's like no one's gonna complain if I put shingles on it. This is gonna be adorable. So Here you can see on the bottom left, that's the little 2-gallon water heater. On the middle bottom, that's the Eurodib 2-burner induction. And then there's a cute little oven. And there's a separate cork-sided bathroom kind of to the side next to the lean-to. So it's got a separate white door. And there's another tiny house that's sort of behind it that's confusing your eye. That's got those white windows. It's a different house. I've got 5 of them. They're all cute. So this is a way for someone to essentially plug into just a normal outlet outside and power a whole house is with this power efficient approach. Next slide. Okay, so if you're trying to get the same heating done, so the house is losing heat, you're trying to put heat into it. I want to show you how efficiency works. On the left-hand side, the low efficiency products out there have an HSPF, that's the heating, of 8.2, and the SEER is 14. That's the federal minimum. And now you can see it goes up to 10 and 18 as you get a little better, and 11 and 20, best, not best, middle. Highest ducted, 13 and 24. And the highest on the duct list side right now is 14 and 33, and I actually have to update it. It's 14 and a half and 38 now. So you're essentially using half as much energy when you get up to the top, almost a third on the air conditioning side, which makes a huge difference for our grid and for you to run your house on your truck, on your Ford Lightning, if you have a really efficient air conditioner. Next slide. Oh, I see, that's the other Sean. I was just seeing over on the side. Sean with the lowercase Sean. Here, air leakage. This is the case for making a less leaky house. So orange is a low leakage house, and orange is a standard normal leaky house, and blue is a tight house. And you can see the wattage on the left-hand side. This is the building heat needed from the heat pump. So it's less heat that's needed on the left-hand side as it's less leaky, less heat needed. And so on the right-hand side, you can see it's a running amps, it's lower power need. So basically, the less heat that it needs, the less power it takes. And there's a big, impact of tightness. This was to illustrate the impact of tightness on the reduction in running amps, the power, and energy, like the energy over the year, and also the instantaneous power. Next slide. These are fun. So I have one, it's down here. Anyway, that one in the middle, the little black box called the Neocharge. These things split energy between your electric dryer plug and your car charger, or your electric range, or your electric water heater. And they're basically plug strips for 240-volt appliances. Instead of plug strips, for 120-volt stuff, these are for the big plugs. And it makes it so you don't have to put in new circuitry and wiring. You can just use the plug that's there for your dryer and run something else off of it. So it works great for car chargers and such. There's just a bunch of examples of these products. It's more for retrofits, but if you're trying to get the job done without spending a ton of money, then these are, $200 to $600 devices that make it so you don't have to run new wiring, which might cost you $600 to $1,000 or more if you have to update your service. Next slide. Okay, I realize I'm running a little over time. I'm sorry. Okay, space heating. These are examples of different wattage demands. Just want to show you in blue how for space heating you have power efficient options like 0, and you have options like 10,300. Same with water heaters, 360 to 2016. Same with cooking. You can do cooking in ways that don't increase your power demand in your house. The plug-in devices that just plug into your kitchen circuits, no increase in power. Same with laundry. I have a plug-in condensing washer dryer. Love it. Just gets my laundry done from dirty to dry. I don't have to touch the stuff. It has no impact on power demand in my house. Same with EV charging. I might charge my electric car just with the trickle one, like 4 miles to the hour. That's all I need. So no power increase on my house. And then if I want to use these power sharing devices, you can see they can save 2,000 to 3,000 watts of power demand. Next slide. So this is how a circuit breaker panel would look if you were running a 3,000 square foot house on a 100 amps, which is small. It's a big house on a small load. So you'd use 2 of those circuit sharing plugs. And the green boxes in the middle, you can see there's a little insignia of a circuit sharing plug, sharing power between a dryer and a water heater, and also between a stove and the car charger. And that's, whoopsie, that's pretty much the trick. You can get a big house on its existing panel. Next slide. There, whew, did it. Okay, so we can go back and answer any technical questions, but we've got the slides. Thanks for your patience there.
Thank you so much, Sean.
Great
Thank
job,
you
Sean.
for a
Yay,
great
we did it!
actually. I'll stop share. Thank you so much, Sean.
I'm gonna stop my video, and I'm here auditorily. I'm just gonna eat some of this food for a second and drink some water.
Now, I know that the chat box was on fire, but Sean with the attendees, I know that you kind of had some questions, and do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, and thanks very much. The presentation is super helpful. I think, I don't know, I'm guessing that everyone is like totally on board with decarbonization. And so we're, you're preaching to the choir here, but I think for folks who are trying to help their clients really understand the true costs, I think it may be, I had a question about cost, and, yes, I understand that installing just electric is less than installing the gas infrastructure. And there are great benefits for like not having the VOCs and not having the methane leakage, like all of that I totally get. But unfortunately, where we live, like installing solar is ridiculously expensive, putting it on your house for the first time. And I think it would make sense to be honest about those costs, as opposed to saying, it's just less to do all electric. It's not really, if you're complying with the codes, So I think it's good to be upfront about that. So I just wondered what if you're helping people through that, what do you suggest? How do you suggest people, talk to their clients about that?
And is your question new construction or retrofit?
I guess new construction is, people are required to put the solar on. I was just, I thought it was a little, everyone is all for your presentation. I thought it was a little disingenuous to say, oh, it's like magically cheaper. It's not really, because the installation costs are a really big factor here. And so I think it's important to let people know that that is a factor. Redoing your panel, I understand the power sharing is good, but there are a lot of installation costs. And the individual heat pumps, you're right, they're not that expensive, but darn it, if you're gonna hire someone to put that sucker in, that's gonna add significant costs. So I think it's good to be kind of straight up with folks about what those costs are, so people can be prepared,
Well, okay, so it seems like you're talking about retrofits and new construction. So let me see if I can address both of them for a moment. So on the new construction side, production builders who build the vast majority, about 95% of all housing built in California is built by production builders. And you all as architects, if you're working on production housing, then you're normal. And if you're working on individual people's homes, then you are part of a privileged class of successful architects. So congratulations. So if you're working in 95% of the housing in California, they get large scale installers to put it in. And the cost, if they do it themselves, which is frequent for the bigger developers, self-installing, is $1,500 a kilowatt. And then if they are paying a subcontractor, it's $1,800 a kilowatt up to about $3,200 a kilowatt, new construction. Depends upon how big the development and how good they are at controlling their costs. I work with developers who work in about the $2,200 to $2,600 range, mostly, and some that work in $1,800. And one with $1,500. So I'm really clear on this. I'm installing solar since '96.
And so then, sorry, that's really helpful. So that's all in 1,500 to say 2,800 a kilowatt. That's including like inverters and solars and
everything,
solar panels and everything.
Soup to nuts.
Not including batteries, just the solar part.
This is solar. The materials, like if you were looking at a $1,500 kilowatt install, which is true cost, then including labor, but it's still no profit on that. Just the cost of getting the job done. Period. Of that, it's about $1,100 to $1,000. That is the racking and the solar and the wires and the inverter and the optimizers and all of that. That's about $1,000, $1,100, and then the other chunk is the labor to install.
And then what do you estimate the permitting costs add to that as well? Because that seems to be, you're right, I'm looking at this from the lens of like doing it in my own house in, Portola Valley, and you're right, it's a very affluent area, and this is a, not a, this is not a typical install, but here it seems to be a real factor in cost. What's it like in other parts of the state then?
Okay, yeah, that's totally fair because you know, the Silicon Valley area is the most expensive place to build in the United States. I do construction cost estimating professionally. I work nationally in this. I consult to various agencies and organizations on construction cost. Yeah, we're done. Construction cost. Boom. So in up here, it's $1,800 a kilowatt from 2 different installers, and then it goes up to like $2,500 to $3,200 in some of the higher cost folks. And then when you get down into Silicon Valley, you start, it seems, at $4,000 or $4,200 a kilowatt, and you start seeing prices in the $5,000. You're like, but that's like everything. You guys have the nuttiest market. And I mean, I just talk with people all the time around the country about how, and they don't believe me. And I'm like, I saw a water heater being installed for $12,000, and it's a $1,200 water heater. That's a real thing in Silicon Valley. Just like, that is a scandal that someone paid that shit, which just makes it look like, you know, like it's way up.
Solar panels are you know, whatever, $150 for a 300 watt solar panel, you know,
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
It's not fair. So, because in the real world, solar panels are 15 cents a watt or $150 a kilowatt. That, like, you know, not 300 watts, but 1,000 watts. That's what you get them for. That's how they go. So it's, yeah, solar's cheap, labor's not, and then your market is a crazy market. And I see that from like Lawrence Berkeley National Labs. They put out pricing that says like solar still an average in California is like $35,000 to $4,000 a kilowatt. I just don't see that in any of my production projects. So it really seems to be like a Bay Area centric retrofit market situation. And my heart goes out to you.
Well, I mean, I think about the lower income. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
Cabot's on the line with us here, and he does a lot of work there, and you know, trying to help folks in lower income move to electrification. And I think that, I mean, I'd be interested in hear.
I think it's got to be Habitat for Humanity down there, because if you pay for the labor, you're paying through the nose. But if you do it like Tom does, you know, sort of as a community group effort, you know, barn raising style, that's what low income folks need, because you just can't pay for it. I do low income housing all over the Bay Area, and the pricing there is always like another third more expensive than anywhere else. And I'm like, I know you do that cheaper just down the road. And they're like, well, we have to like park people there while we're doing it in hotels and locate them and per diem. And it's just like, it's so much more expensive in the Bay Area for everything. So I think it's worth, what we've seen is that it is cost effective over a 15-year period up to $4,800 a kilowatt. And we found that out when we did canopy solar, and we were comparing it against the rent increase we could get, like the value of it, basically the money that came in. We found that $4,800 was the point that broke it. But up until that point, you could still have up to a 15-year payback with California rates currently. So, okay, that's at least an effort at the solar question. It depends where you are.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, just to end, and I appreciate you answering the question, and I apologize for dominating the questions here. I guess I think the most compelling argument for people who are serving clients in this area is that the electrification is great for all the reasons we've discussed, but also for power, what I call power certainty with the forest fires and what have you. Like, people will do this for the batteries so that their power doesn't go out in their house. And I think in the end, like, for affluent clients, they don't care what it costs. If you can tell them that you can build them a system where their power will never go off and all their appliances will work, they'll probably spend the money.
Yeah, and like I said, and you guys are the 5% of the architects working with the 5% of our income bracket, you know, and these people can pay for security. And I think the next tier down are the people who have electric vehicles, like myself, not in the 5%, you know, like more in like the 85th percentile, or I mean, 15, whatever, you know. But, and I'm going to use my used EV to power my house during those issues, and go get a few $100s invested in a vehicle to building charger. And, you know, maybe sometimes my power will be out for 10 minutes before I turn on my car. Sucks to be me, but it's not that bad.
I thought there's a great point that you made, though. I mean, in fact, I didn't realize that, in fact, literally the car and the battery in the car is cheaper than the batteries. And
yeah,
the batteries, those power walls are very competitively priced in the real relative.
Yeah, it's a good product. I support power walls. I just wish that Tesla would release. They have the hardware invested in all their cars since 2019 to power the house, and they just won't release the software to make it happen until the Ford Lightning comes out And, you know, and then they'll be, ta-da, we always had the capability. Now you can charge your house. But I think that's like next year's revelation about the Tesla.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
good questions.
Anyone else have questions? We have 10 more minutes with Sean, so make every second count.
Sean, I was wondering if you're familiar with any companies that will allow you to put in Powerwall if you don't have solar.
Yeah, the like just battery only installations, they're not common, but I know that people who do solar plus batteries will just do batteries. I think that wouldn't be a you just do that.
So I've tried a whole bunch of different companies, and
No.
none of them will do it.
Why?
I don't. Well, that's what I mean. To me, it's so obvious, but
Okay,
they refuse to do it.
I'm wrong, but I'm totally surprised because it's just wiring and stuff. Like, why wouldn't they? It's not like there's any issue with code. It's not like it's your own business if you want to put in a battery. They rebate it for like the incentive, the SGIP incentive, the self-generation investment program. They SGIP for just a battery, they'll pay you money to like 80% off up to that to put it in batteries just because they need batteries. They don't need the solar. They're kind of solar hostile sometimes, but they want the battery.
What is there an organization that would connect me to somebody who would sell the batteries and do the invert?
Tom, can you step in, Tom Cabot? Can you rescue me here? I mean, I would send you to Barry Cinnamon, but he's not even quite there. And I know he does battery and solar. Tom, are you still there?
Yes, Sean, I'm here. Yeah, I'm thinking of who does that, but I think checking in with Barry is the thing to do. And if he's not doing it, he may know someone who is.
Okay, I'll put Barry Cinnamon's email address here in the chat for you, Ken. Is that cool?
Thank you. Great, thank you.
Okay. So Barry, he is a prominent, well-regarded solar plus battery installer, and he's really into the batteries part of it. And he will tell you though, the batteries are a challenge. So it's good to go with a company that, because they're constantly updating their software and makes you crazy. Just having, like, you think you're putting in a piece of hardware, but actually it's like you're maintaining a big computer system every year because they change it and update it and change it. So he'll guide you right, I guess is what I'm saying. You know, he knows the trials and tribulations of batteries.
Thank you. I mean, one of the dilemmas I have is that I live in Portola Valley and 100% of our energy is alternative energy.
Right.
So I figure, well, if I put solar panels on our roof, I'm no longer going to support that industry because I'll be using all my own power, and then we're not only are we only still getting this alternative energy, but we're no longer paying the industry to support it.
And yeah, I hear that. You know, I was just corresponding today with SMUD folk because they're finally setting up a program to allow people to sell solar into the grid. They've been resistant all these years. And I was saying, you know, for my low-income tenants, I want to get these solar arrays so that they only have to pay the minimum monthly bill of $20. And I want, you know, SMUD to have what they need to keep on going, but then put in a solar array. And it was interesting. They corresponded. They said, well, you know, it's $21 now, but we think the actual price for the minimum charge we should make is $50. It's like, oh, that's a lot, kind of. But just so you know, if you just want to send them $50 a month, apparently that's what they really need. And
Well, I send them more than that.
oh, that's nice of you. Next slide.
And I see a comment from Luke Martin. He's saying there is an incentive coming in code compliance for battery only in 2022 code cycle too. So it looked like the
Right.
Yeah, the 2022 code. I don't know, Luke, can you maybe touch on that? I'm not sure. Luke.
Yeah, hold on. I've got to park the. I'm out in the bicycle here. Let me. Yeah, no. Here we are. Here, I had to take this guy out. But yeah. In short, that's just. I meant to say by that comment is like this should be. The battery only approach, you know, hopefully there's a lot of weirdness in these markets where we see high prices for PV, as Sean was already talking about, and resistance to doing battery only. And I would like to think that there's going to be someone out there locally who will do all these things for you guys, because there's nothing, as Sean was saying, there's nothing technical about it. It's just like
weirdness.
Just getting someone to do it. It's not hard. It's just, are they in the business? Are they in that business? And furthermore, there should be even more of the business coming down the road, as this will be a compliance element for 2022, and in a year or so.
So when you say compliance, meaning is it in the assumed minimum performance? So you'll have to do a trade-off if you don't put in a battery?
I haven't seen the ACM come out yet, obviously, Sean. So but I know Mozzie's been talking about it. He's expressed it specifically for residential compliance, if I remember correctly. It's like, yeah, we're going to have a battery only, because storage is a compelling value for the grid as a grid asset, even if it's private cost with public benefits.
They've been really kind of a pickle about all these years not wanting to have electric vehicles, or for that matter, swimming pool heaters in the code. But now that the car battery is going to be the most ubiquitous big battery in society, they're going to have much. I mean, like right now in California, it's 8% of vehicles being sold last year were electric, and in the Bay Area, it was almost 38%. These are common batteries that everyone's going to be getting over the next 10 years. And so hopefully the Energy Commission starts like, oh yeah, we should start thinking about not giving credit just for that stationary battery, but for the actually bigger, 4 to 8 times bigger battery that will be available to the grid at the house. They're already requiring car chargers. So let's, aw, cute doggy.
And my quick comment on that, following up, is that was my main case study. Encouraging the CEC, talk to your own staff about this. They're down the road in a different office, looking at integration of the battery of car batteries into the building asset modeling, and encouraging maybe it's a home energy management credit or something. But they're, as Sean, they're kind of siloed, and so there's either they break the silo or they keep the silo, and that
Well, I think until Bill Pennington retires, because he is absolutely adamantly opposed to electric. He's been dragged into this kicking and screaming every single step of the way. He personally doesn't think vehicles should be included in the code, but here we are.
Okay, we have one last question because we need to let Sean eat his dinner.
I got most of the stuff in there.
Who wanna ask the last question? If we don't, we can just conclude 1 minute earlier.
I was gonna think, is there, of all my best hits, of all the ends, the thing to just say it again, I think it is parochial, like small-minded of us, to not pay attention in California to what the South has been doing for 70 years. And that California, the reason why we have such a gas-friendly code is because the 2001 electricity crisis, which was actually a scam. We found that out in 2005. And then, Kenneth Lay, he died of a heart attack just before going to prison, and Skillings committed suicide, right? So the big people at Enron died on a sword for what happened, and we got our governor, Schwarzenegger. We got a recall, all of that craziness. In 2003, they created the modern code, the one that we've had ever since, that's TDV based and et cetera. And they always did it to stop electrification because they thought wrongly that they had an electricity crisis and they'd had a gas scam. The gas to be delivered to power plants was the scam. So we have been living in a carbon state. Like California started off as a hydrocarbon state. We were the number one producers of oil. We still produce a fair amount of oil. That we're a petro state with who got scammed, and we're just waking up from it. We only had 1% of construction between 2010 and 2020 that was all electric. 1%, according to SC, statewide, and about 2/3 of that was in Redwood Energy's portfolio. And that's BS. Because in the same period of time in the South, they're going from they went from 45% up to 80%, you know, and like over the course of that same period of time. So it is self-evidently cost-effective for production housing all over the country. And it's only been the cold climate heat pumps and our own misunderstandings that have kept us from seeing oh, it's cheaper, it's more energy efficient. And it's really only 2017 that the building science community of California stopped being held by the short and curlies by PG&E and the rest of the utilities, saying they're not allowed to research all electric. You're not allowed to get grants, you're not allowed to get rebates. We'll fire you if you even talk about it at a building science conference. It's 2017 when that stopped. And so we're just getting out of the fog, you know, of actually being able to talk about it at building science conferences, being allowed to compare them back and forth. I can't overstate how hardcore the utilities and the Energy Commission were after the energy crisis to try to stop electrification of end uses to, you know, stabilize the grid. Whew. So it's not that we don't have grid stresses, but there was a little overkill where that went, you know, and because there's ways to deal with grid stress that don't require us, you know, reinforcing climate change. One of the worst states in the country to reinforce climate change through our building models. We're at the very worst of the worst. We're as bad as it gets here in California. So we have some places to grow, and I encourage us to look around what other states have been doing. Hawaii or Alabama, you know, or for that matter, Saudi Arabia, which has got one of the most aggressive electrification programs in the world. They're going to electrify everything and putting up renewable power by 2030 for carbon neutrality. That's what they're using their fossil fuel money for. So this is not even just California. This is a well understood international phenomenon. Cheap solar paired with electrification and some batteries and some wind to fill in the gaps. Okay, that was my last conclusion. Leanne, you want to say anything?
No, just thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sean. Thank you so much for a great presentation. A lot of information. We are going to share the slides with everyone on this call. Thank you, Leanne, for a great presentation. Now, if anyone wanted to join Fossil-Free Building Silicon Valley, they are really making big change when it comes to reach codes. Or if you wanted to join AIA San Mateo County Codes, feel free to reach out to me or to Leanne. We'll put our information in the slides that we are going to share. And yeah, hopefully you enjoy this. If you have any comments, any topics you want us to cover, just feel free to email me or to email executive@AIA San Mateo County. We would like to hear from you. Anyway, okay. Thank you all for attending. Great presentation.
Great forum. Great forum.
Thank you, Mohammed.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Have a good night. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.